So mainstream. I love the Ramones. We're live. It is 7:21. Mumbling to myself. I'm a little bit late. I was prepping. So tonight we want to talk about this one on a small block Ford. We could do this on a small block Chevy, a Dodge, whatever. It doesn't matter. The question is, which one would you rather have? Your options are if you have a bone stock motor. In this case, we'll take a 5-liter Ford. And would you put a blower on it without making any other changes? Just a blower. Obviously, you're going to have whatever necessary fuel you want. Or would you rather do heads, cam, and intake? And yes, I know the the best option is having both of those. Yes, it definitely is. That's definitely the way to go. And so when I did the test I'm going to talk about, we did that. And that obviously works out best because it always works out best. More is always the way to go, particularly when we're talking about, we want more power, more boost and more power. All that stuff goes together. But it's an interesting comparison because, well, they make very, very similar power, oddly enough. And we want to talk about why that's the case, because that isn't always the case. It wouldn't be the same thing if we were to do, for instance, an LS motor. We wouldn't have the same results because it's already starting out differently than the small block Ford is, or than a small block Chevy, or arguably a Magnum or small block Dodge. So if we take a look at this, we could do this with a number of different blowers. We could do it with a Vortec, Pro Charger, Torque Storm. We could do it with any of those. On this particular one, we did it with a Roots blower, and it was a Holley/Wyand blower. And we ran a carburetor on top of it. So we took let's say the fuel injection manifold off. And I think we started with this thing being a carbureted deal, but we took it off. But we ran it with a stock E7TE heads. We ran it with a stock 5-liter cam. It was a stock 302 short block. This one had a piston in it that had valve reliefs because we ran more camshaft in this thing later on. But stock rockers and stock exhaust manifolds, and we had exhaust but no cats going. This was done the engine dyno, going to an exhaust setup, but at the power level that we were at, which was like 250 or something, it was not in any way restrictive. But what we did was, after we ran the thing NA, we then ran the thing with the small Holley or Wyand blower. I don't remember if it was. I don't think it was a 144. I think it's a 174. So it had the potential to make more power. We did make a lot more power after we replaced the heads, cam, and intake manifold, because we did that both NA and we did it when we had the blower on there. And the thing that always happens when we do that, when we have a blower or running at the same speed, when we put those things on there, the boost came down, the power went up, all the good things that you want, particularly with a root style blower like that. Even though we were getting charge cooling from the carburetor, which is a good thing, always a good thing. You still don't want to run a lot of pressure with those. And so this was on the stock motor, was about 7.5 or 8 pounds at the horsepower peak. Because one thing that needs to be mentioned when we put a blower on here, particularly compared to a 5-liter Ford, like the factory intake manifold, you're talking about the factory EFI intake manifold, very long runner, and it makes power at a very, very low engine speed. When we put the blower on, we're also making an intake change, and that intake flows more, for one thing, flows more than the factory 5-liter intake manifold does, but also it's tuned at a much different engine speed. So short runner and a blower, obviously nothing but good. We did make power quite a bit higher in engine speed. Let me see where we were making peak power here. Here we go. Yeah, peak power is up at like 6,100, and I think that's as high as we revved it when we had the stock stuff on there. So that's quite a bit higher than the low to mid, 5,500 range or so that you would get if you ran the stock one, and it might not even be that high. I need to go. That's a good question on our stock stuff. I think it might even be lower than that. 302. Go to this one. Our turbo. I'm trying to remember specifically when we ran that. with the factory intake manifold. This one will kind of tell us. Yeah, I actually lower than that, 50, 51 or 5200 RPM, so fairly low. So you extended it a lot just by having two things are happening. One, we've got a shorter runner intake manifold, and we had a slightly rising boost curve with this, which is not a good thing because what was happening is the motor is getting less efficient at processing the airflow that the blower wants to supply, and so the boost pressure goes up, and then the flow rate goes down, which is not good. But once we put the blower on there with the stock motor, it made 435 horsepower and 426 foot-pounds of torque. Torque curve was, as we would expect, kind of nice and flat. And if we compare that to the naturally aspirated motor, we took a 5-liter like that, and it wasn't the same motor, but the same basic short block. And then we added very good heads to it, trick flow 11R heads. You could put airflow research like 185s on it. We added the 274 extreme energy camshaft on it. On this one, we added a, I think this is a trick flow intake manifold on here too. And then we put roller rockers on the heads because they had, they were equipped with studs and guide plates and stuff. And then it had both of them, I think when we ran the stock one, had long tube headers on it. And we had long tube headers on it. And with that combination, this thing made over 400 horsepower, made 420 horsepower. So it did very well. And 391 foot-pounds of torque, and made power obviously a lot higher than it would have with the stock stuff. And so that made really good power and was within 10 or 12 peak in terms of horsepower. It made it a lot higher engine speed than the blower motor did, but didn't make as much torque. It made 390 foot-pounds versus 426. So advantage in the peak torque, and also advantage in the low speed torque quite a bit for the blower stuff, because the nice thing about a roots blower is even though it has a short runner, when you're nailing the throttle, you get immediate boost. And also you're getting immediate boost with the stock camshaft. And the stock camshaft, the one thing about the heads cam and intake manifold, it did shift power production higher in the rev range. So it, compared to the stock stuff, it did lose a little bit of power down low. Whereas we would lose a little bit of power from the runner length of the blower, but it makes up for that. So that combination was actually a little bit better down low. Well, a good bit better down low than the naturally aspirated combination. So the question is, would you just put a blower on the stock combination, or would you go heads, cam, and intake manifolds? So we'll even make that our poll here. Okay, for a small block Ford, would you choose boosting the stock motor over adding heads, cam, and intake manifold? So we have, like I said, similar peak power numbers, different RPM ranges, less torque down low, in a little less power. Excuse me, a little bit less power up top too on the blower thing. So with the blower thing, you have, you're making more power, but and I think for a lot of guys, maybe they would be interested in looking at the cost on both of these. I don't know what my guess is heads, cam, and intake probably would be a little more than that blower combination would be. Maybe not. You'd have to buy a carburetor for that too. But that's something that you could tune yourself. If you had a 5-liter, like an HO and a Mustang or something, you also would have to get a different distributor, because you'd have to not run the factory TFI, in distributors. You have to look at all that and kind of weigh that out and see what you come up with in terms of cost. But the nice thing about the blower is that you have the ability to go more than that if you did. And the only way to do that with a heads, cam, and intake setup is you're pretty fixed on the kind of power that you're going to make, unless you add nitrous or later on add boost with a blower like that, or Vortec or something, you know, or even a turbo. You could adding a turbo to it would be also acceptable and very beneficial. So let's see what you guys got going on. Eric, special agent, 2 in 1 day here for both. Nice win. That's a win-win, right? Is anybody watching any of the football games that are on? I think that there's football games on today. Somebody had mentioned that on the earlier live feed. I'm not a big football fan. We have watched stuff before, but I don't have any sort of team. G'day, mate. Good. I like the I like the usage there. I like to keep my moving parts to a minimum. What's up? 4.8 that could. Nice. How's it going, Richard? I did the camshaft break-in today. Nice. Without a problem, I think. Fingers crossed. Change the oil after I was done. Oh, it was a funny color. I think it's from the Molly. It will get discolored and it will get darker if you use the typical kinds of assembly lube on it. It does make you worry when you're doing the oil change, but that's okay. A lot of times when we're doing dyno testing, we do the break-in stuff and we'll even make a bunch of runs on the break-in oil because it's brand new and I don't care about the break-in stuff. It's fine. If there's anything bad in there, there's something bad in there and the motor's going to break. If there's only a little bit of bad stuff and the motor's not going to break, the filter's going to take it out. It'll be all fine. Steven, what's going on? Drag van cam break-ins are always nerve-wracking. I agree. Assembly lube will always make the first change and nasty. Had a little metal on the magnet and the drain plug. All pressure was good at 25, 165 after 30 minutes, and idle at 35. Nice. That's good. You're set. Most NA out of a 1990 302. Are you asking what the most I've ever done, or what is the most that you can get? And are you trying to build a race motor? The timing change will drop a lot of metal during the first couple of oil changes. I wouldn't worry about that. I need some help deciding if I should go keep my Edelbrock upper and lower or change to the trick flow. It depends on what you're trying to achieve, and I don't know which Edelbrock you have. I personally like the trick flow stuff better, but I think I need to do another 5-liter, big 5-liter intake test. Near. 408 has such a deep tone. The blower's in the budget than the blower. The one thing about head cam and intake manifold, you don't have to buy all that at the same time. Just acquired a 1990 LX Mustang. Those are good. I have an 88. I'm going NA, make it rev to the moon. Do you go LS swap or stay with that 302? Depends on what you're trying to do. What are you trying to achieve? An LS, even if you just go to the wrecking yard and get a 5.3, it'll obviously make, even just a stock one, will make as much power as a modified 302 does. But it's not cheap to do that. You got to change a lot of stuff to put an LS in there. I know lots of people have Mustangs with LS swaps in them, and they'll tell you that they cost a nickel, but it doesn't. The nice thing is if you can go to the wrecking yard and get an aluminum LS, then that's awesome. They're modified distributors to allow clearance for a root style blower. Yeah, you just get a small cap. Yes, if you look at the thumbnail, where is my... I think ours was probably an MSD. Yeah, it was an MSD. And the blower that they did back in the day has an offset snout designed to go around. We didn't even use a small cap distributor. We used the standard Ford cap. So like I said, if you look at the thumbnail, it's just a standard cap. It's like the one that's on your 5-liter or on most MSD or factory style Ford, the big cap distributors. And it fits just fine. The offset, because it's a front mounted distributor, and then the offset blower drive allows for that. That's not a problem. That's not as big a problem as it is on some of the Chevy stuff where it's in the back, especially with the bigger blowers that overhang the back of it. It's good stuff. That was a fun test. I did all the stock stuff. We did even a stock exhaust with H-pipe and stuff on that. We did that. We ran more boost. Obviously, we did pulley changes on it. And then I think we put Canfield heads on it and then a camshaft in it. And it, it did what we would expect it to do. Which is nice. It's nice when it works out like that. It doesn't, sometimes the dyno testing doesn't always go as planned. The time machine doesn't drop metal. The cylinder walls do. That's what's causing the magnet to look like a sea urchin. Yeah, you'll get some wear from the walls. 500-mile break-in, then take it to Irwindale and see if the 408 is better than the old 360. Dropping an apples test, same 250 shot, same program on the nitrous controller, hopefully 760s. Okay. I'd like to see the test run NA to NA, but I'm perfectly happy hearing what happens when you ran the nitrous, because that's nothing but cool too. That's nothing but awesome. Just general nitrous-y awesomeness. We do like that as well. Stiffer sway bar for the Volvo 240 just arrived. Wanted to try my first four-cylinder car. Cool. Why did you get a different bar? Are you making it handle better? And is it a bigger rear bar or a bigger front bar? Tell me what's going on. You're putting coilovers on it. You got shock springs. What are you doing, man? Shock springs and bars. That is the normal stuff for Windows Irwindale close. I thought that happened already. But Dragman, when's Irwindale closing? If you're taking it to Irwindale again, then obviously it's not. I thought that somebody said that they were taking it for the last weekend that it was open. My first experience with nitrous felt like the bench seat in my Monte Carlo was going to break. Nitrous is a lot of fun. I can't wait to show it to my kids for the first time. It'll be fun. Nitrous can fix a lot of problems. Yeah, we did a lot of foolish stuff with nitrous early on. And the thing is, after you figure out that it's going to work, like every time you hit the button, then you're like, oh, I got to hit this all the time. And we did. We hit it on the street, road racing, drag racing, all of it. It's all good. There's nothing bad about that. Both bars, okay, front and back, cool. May go to shocks. If I'm not happy, I want to retain the SUV level of ride height with those come with from the factory. Oh, on the wagon. So if you got to do some off-road stuff, okay, I get it. Does that 240 have a 4-valve motor in it? I don't know what year that is. I like the Volvo wagons. I think that those are cool. Our car, the Green Gangster, has been 1040s in the quarter with a stock long block 302 and a 150 shot. A stock long block, including a stock cam. Because 150 shot in a stock 302 doesn't equate to 1040s. So just tell me what else is done to it. Acquired a 1990 Mustang for $1,000. Nice. Great floors. Came with a stock 302. No, by today's standards, the stock 5 liter is not very powerful. A 5.3 from the wrecking yard would be up 100 horsepower on a stock 5 liter. My first setup, I just ran a fuel line to the one solenoid and nitrous to the other. Had no clue you're supposed to regulate the supply. What were they flowing into? Was it a plate system or what was it? WFO. 1992. It's got the 2-valve. Okay, just a sedan, not a wagon. Either way, super cheap. Past mod, cool. Need to get down to Irwindale, a 68 Impala. My 6.8 Impala. Stock cam, okay. Had a plate under a Q-Jet on a stock 302. Like the series on a 4.62 valve. So a stock 302 makes 250, and then you add a 150 to that, so that's 400. So you're going 1040s on 400 horsepower. That must be a pretty light Mustang. I'll have to ask Jimmy. We put a turbo on a stock one, and it went 10s. It went 1090s, I think. But I seem to remember it making more power than that. Famoso has a December 7th thing going. One driver and crew for $200. Nice. There's a guy in here that ran low 7s with a Volvo 4-cylinder and a funny car that looked like a Dodge Dakota. It must be a one heck of a 4-cylinder. What kind of power does an L96 6-liter make with a truck Norris cam? Well, if you look at the stuff that I've tested, we have I have an LY6 with a truck Norris cam that we ran, and it's probably, I don't know, 450 or 460 or something. I'm loving the cooler temperatures. Yeah, it is definitely horsepower weather outside. I know because we have the fire going. So, at least even got little coats for the dogs. I'm like, they don't want to wear that. They're fine. How much boost can you run through a factory LS3 intake manifold? I don't know. I've never seen a limit on them. We've run 28 pounds through factory truck. I think factory truck manifolds. I don't know that we've run that much through an LS3. I'm sure that we've run 20 through them. Those Volvo red blocks are no joke. Yeah. Nitrous boost and heads, cam, and intake's all fun until the honeymoon's over. That's right. Pro charger setup for Dan. Nice. Blower stuff is nice. Turbo stuff is nice. Nitrous stuff is nice. It's all good. I've driven around in all those, and it's not a Pro Charger one. Mine was a Vortec, but same thing. I drove that for a long time, but drove the Mustang around for quite a while with probably a year and a half or something, I think, with the nitrous on it. 1,300 horsepower on the. What's the Volvo red block? Is it a 2-liter or is it 2.3? Ran 1470 with an L96 with a truck Norris. My 2500. It's now at 10 psi. Wonder what it would do now. It would do a lot more. So I don't know what fuel you're running on it, but it would be 1.69 times 450 or something. That'd be a lot. like the Volvet with the twin turbo LS. There you go. Bolt-ons are forever. That's right. Hoping for 13s on 93 octane. Uh, 10 pounds should easily do that. What cam at 302 would you suggest? Something rowdy. You don't have a small block Jasper Street use 650. I like that 274 cam, but they're not cheap. Summit has a bunch that probably would do really close to what that one does, and they're less money. Can you run a Holly Sniper with a roots blower? If you're talking about a Sniper 4-barrel throttle body thing, yes, you can. Did you ever blow up a plastic intake? I never have. I've never hurt one with boost. I've never even seen one hurt with boost at Westec. The only time I've ever seen those manifolds get broken is on a backfire situation, usually with nitrous. I just had a Vortec to a completely stock 5-liter. Back in the day, that was a big thing. Lots of A trims and B trims back in the day. When boring a motor for 4 or 5 pistons, what would be a good cylinder to piston clearance for a big boost? 25 plus. The piston manufacturer will tell you what the piston to wall clearance should be. Then you need to consider what the ring gap should be. The ring gap for high boost should be 6.5 thousandths per inch of bore. But the piston manufacturer will tell you based on whatever their metallurgy is, whatever their growth is. On a 405 bore, I'm thinking it's probably going to be, I don't know, 5 or 6 thousandths or something. There's a local guy that had a Series 1 Vortex supercharger. I don't know what that is. For sale, he said it was an early one, but it was number 1500 or something. Mine was really early. The red block has a few different displacements, 1.8, 2.4, 2.5. Oh, for boat engines. That's right. I remember when my buddy had his V6 that we used to go out and ski by the Queen Mary and stuff. I remember back then, I remember him talking about the Volvo Penta engines and drives. Mine was serial number 001. And then the S trim was 007. Guys, 007. You gotta have that. That's the Vortec that Kenny Detweiler used for the Carcraft cart also. So I got that after they were done. And I gave it back to the guys at Vortec. I gave serial number 001 back to the guys at Vortec. I said, you need to put this in on display in your deal. Richard, do you have anything for sale? LS or big block Chevy, heads, cam, intakes? I have cams for sale for the LS. I don't have any big block stuff. Rob, I don't know what you mean by thoughts. Near. My future's so bright. 14.7 L96 with a truck Norris. Was your on your L96 truck 2500 HD? Is it a 4-wheel drive one? And were you? What was the 60 foot on that? Were you launching good? Why does boost have to be so addictive? It really is. Forgot to add a question mark. I was asking for my opinion. My opinion about what? What is it you want to know about it? You got to be more specific, man. I don't want to go off on any kind of dissertation about an engine. You got to ask me what you're trying to do or tell me what you're trying to do. Let me know when you get a roller cam for 350 Olds. Yeah, don't know that that's going to be on the list. About to swap a mostly stock LM4 into a 76 Dodge B200. Nice. Looking for a cam and converter. Drivability and mile per gallon are more important than peak power. Well, then, I mean, wouldn't you just want to stay with the stock cam? And actually, if you're going to do that, a VVT motor might be even better. I would kind of be surprised if. Be interesting to see if a VVT motor got better fuel mileage in the same vehicle. Richard, how much can altitude and air density affect air-fuel ratio? Well, and see, I don't see this as much as people talk about it. I look at a carburetor as a mechanical mass air meter, and it seems to work fairly well. But I've never seen an actual test where somebody has gone from sea level and left the jetting the same. And this may change differently with different styles of carburetor. But the test that I'd like to see that I've never run, and that way I could answer your question based on a test, is I don't know what the actual change is rather than a calculated change. Going from sea level to, like, let's say that we went to 7,000 feet or something, and you could go more than that if you want to go 10,000 or whatever and be ridiculous about it. But, you just drive up the Sierras or whatever and go from sea level to there and go, okay, like at 1,000 feet at sea level, it was this. Let's say that we tuned it under, and you have to be measuring it like at some known throttle angle and load and stuff, because that's going to vary also. So, that'd be hard going up a hill. Going up in elevation. You'd almost have to go up to an elevation, find a flat at that elevation, and do a steady state cruise like at 2,000 RPM and top gear or whatever, if that's what you're trying to find. If you're trying to find the change in air fuel under cruise, or the change in air fuel under wide open throttle, whatever you're doing, the test area that you would be running at would have to be the same at all those altitudes. Otherwise, you could get variations in the air fuel just from the change in load. Have you ever done sequential turbos? I haven't, other than running stuff that had factory sequential turbos on a chassis dyno. I've never done it on an engine dyno. If you want an Oldsmobile 455 to replace the 350, and you're in the SoCal area, let me know. So you have a 455 Oldsmobile in Southern California? Like one that we could run on the dyno? Well, why am I just hearing about this? That's right, Matt. Add all that, then boost. A stock nice Fox is really rare and probably worth decent money. How high can a 302 rev? Well, in racing, you can run them to 10,000, but you're not going to want to spend the money to do that. So the question is, like, what kind of budget do you have, and what would you realistically rev it to? We do the No Thoughts shirts at the website. I know they need to. Have you ever recommended a gear ratio for an LS swapped car? I feel mine is too conservative. The gear ratio would, like the engine that you have in it would be part of it, but it'd also be what you're trying to do with it. So the gear ratio that I would recommend for an LS swapped, let's say Camaro going to Bonneville, or a Monza going to Bonneville, or anything else going to Bonneville, obviously would be different than one where a guy is either drag racing or he is road racing, or, it would be kind of application specific. Got an LS 402 bottom end done. My Gen 6 454 was feeling neglected, so I took it apart and sent the block out to get 60 over. Turbo 496 for the wagon. There you go. All that's good. I'm in Ohio if Richard wants to deliver when he comes for the GLH. 390s is always 390 gears is always the answer. So Gary, also, what transmission do you have and what vehicle do you have? A 288 or higher for Bonneville. Yeah, they can get up there. What's the most lift a stock 351 non-roller can handle with stock springs? I don't know. I don't know what the springs are on a flat tappet set of E7 TE heads. I don't know that I have a lot of experience with the hydraulic flat tappet 351 stuff. I would imagine not much. I would imagine less than 500 and maybe even like way less than that. Maybe closer to 450 or something. What's the lowest gear you've run for LSR stuff? I'd have to look at the gearing on the final drive on the Civic was not terribly low numerically. It was a 4.0, but it depends a lot on what your overdrive gears are too. So in the Mustang, it was we ran a 241 for the Silver State. That was the lowest gear that we ran in that car ever, and it didn't work out that well. I think that the split was too big between fourth and fifth, or we didn't have enough power, or had a bad power curve with the centrifugal blower. If we had a turbo, I think we could have maybe taken advantage of that. But what we really needed was a 6-speed with an intermediate gear between the 1-to-1 and the 0.68. We needed like a 0.8 in the middle there, and then that would have been fine. But the other cars were all not as high RPM as the VTEC motor was, but even the Volkswagen and the Suzuki were all 7 to 7,500, I think, our RPM for engine speed. So they had enough engine speed to deal with. Agent, I have 3 of them. One's a 71, slightly modified runner, but sitting in a Rex chassis. Second is a stock 75. Runner in a moving chassis. Third is an unknown from a junkyard on an engine stand. Those are all Pontiac Buick Oldsmobile 455s. Feel free to come grab any of them. .252 is my 60-foot time. That's not a stellar 60-foot time. Turbo with no lift shifts. All Oldsmobile 455s. I should probably run one of those, right? On the engine dyno? Because in that way I could say that I ran an Oldsmobile and a Buick and a Pontiac. 78 Z28, original owner. Nice, thumbs up. 3750 with unit and a full tank of gas. Okay. Blueprint Engine Builder Series LS3, 530 horsepower, transmission. Okay, 4L65 is on a 4L65. Is that a 0.7 fourth gear in that? 225, 238. Are you ever caring about how fast you go and like what your fuel mileage is? Okay, there we go. 0.7. That's what I thought. 355. 2400 stall. I think you're already pretty good with what you have. If you have traction and you want more acceleration, you could go to a 373 or 410 or something. But I don't know that you do. Are you going to take advantage of that much? Excited for us to shift to release the standalone 10-speed controller. Okay. Cool. I need to go get my Omni. I was going to say I need another turbo motor in my life. I have one. Probably need better tires. Oh, okay. Do you have a traction problem? Is it spinning? Well, it would be worse not to be able to spin them than it would be to be able to spin them a lot. Because a traction problem is better than a power problem. How's our poll doing? For a small block Ford, would you choose boosting the stock motor over adding heads, cam, and intake? 5743. I could pull the 71 and have it ready to go if you want. I also have a set of legendary sea casting heads off to the side. If you want to take them for testing. Olds guys swear that they're the best. So are they? I'm not hip on Oldsmobile stuff. Are they like some sort of big valve, small compression head deal? And wouldn't the 71 have the highest factory compression? Not great. Way to go, James. Now I got to go do a deep dive on Olds 455. I'm kind of surprised I haven't done that in the past, though. I do need to look at that. I'd like to see it tested. Are the heads a bolt-on thing? Like, can I take one set off and bolt the other ones on? Do either one of them have like adjustable rockers that I have to worry about, or push rod lengths, or that kind of thing? Did we ever finish the Omni? Yeah, the Omni's done and driving around. We took it to the Shelby event. I think the only thing it's missing now is the AC's there, but I don't know that it's charged or anything. It's a really, really heavy long bed. Okay, that might be why. Thought the J heads were the better ones. I thought J heads were Mopar small blocks. Same thing though. Same, they both have the same cool like top secret code name. Near. Oldsmobile V8, the Rocket. .303, nice. 324. That's a lot of them I've never even heard of. A 371. The J2 Golden Rocket. 3 2 barrels. I'm liking that. .394, the Skyrocket. Skyrocket's in flight. 345 horsepower, nice. Aluminum 215. Oldsmobile Turbo Rocket, 215. So I had 1 horsepower per cubic inch, nice. The Turbo Rocket. Turbo rocket fluid, lots of good stuff there. 330, 400, 442. The W30 camshaft. Now I'm going to be an Oldsmobile guy. Here we go. Small block heads were numbers and big blocks were letters. This one doesn't have factory pistons. It's got higher compression, but the 71 junkyard motor has factory flat tops. Not sure the ratio. That one has the J heads on it. Okay. J heads are smog heads. C's are pre-smog. Okay. I have G heads with big valves on the 71 motor. Very cool. Very coolio. Coolio Iglesias. The Tornado Rocket. I like that. The rocket name disappeared from the air cleaner. The Rocket 350. .403. Trans Am. You know, it's like the first time you see a Trans Am. .307 high output. Oh, cool. There's a lot of stuff for me to look at there. That will be awesome sauce. Oldsmobile Ramrod. Have you done Power Tour? I never have done Power Tour. 408 Windsor, 205 heads, 242, 248. Those are all good. 5-speed car, 2,400 pounds. Will the Performer PM, will the intake hold me back for a street car that goes to the track sometimes? It would make more power with a single plane, but you will sacrifice power. I have that video up, the testing that I did on a 408 Windsor, the trick flow one, where we ran single plane and dual plane. You got to see what the difference of the power curves is. Well, C heads must be old because I remember those. That's what olds means, right? My 07 Silverado, 26 to 2800 stall. While in reverse, if I tap the gas, then right on the brake, it tries to stall, but the ECU catches it. Any idea on if idle needs to be adjusted higher? It's probably something else in the tune. I don't think it's just, what is the, do you have is this a factory ECU? Like, what's the factory ECU idle speed set at? The Ramrod is a 350 with solid lifters. Wow. Ooh, the hot camshaft was a 196-208. That's nice. It's big power. .307, big power. 260. So put the 350 heads on the 403. See, I already know how to modify them. It's good stuff. The Rocket 350. Near. They're not really showing enough power outputs for me. I would like more. 5-liter small block Ford Big Bang, and a 462 valve also. 351 Windsor with a 3.8 crank, 3850 crank. What pistons and rods can use stock bore? You have a 4-inch bore. The bore is not overboard. If you have that 3850 crank, aren't you going to have to use a custom rod and piston, like as part of the stroker kit? Yeah, and Shadow with a 5.7, you should have no trouble with idle. That's why I'm wondering if the off throttle thing in reverse is something else in the program that needs to be adjusted. It's not just idle speed. Put the big block heads on the 350. That's not what it says here. This is Wikipedia. They're never wrong about that stuff. It says they were saying you put the 350 heads with the smaller chambers on the 403s, I think, is what they were saying. Yeah, a popular modification made to the 403 was to increase power was to swap out early Oldsmobile 350 heads to boost the compression. Now I haven't looked at the different compressions on those to see what's going on with the heads, but what I can tell you about small turbos, miles per gallon suffers because it's too easy to roll into boost. There is that. It's not the turbo itself; it's just the temptation. Richard, what motors have you done big bangs on? The 4 LS motors, 1 351, 1 Hemi, 1 partial on the big block, 4 our big block Chevy. What else do we do? Haven't done it yet on the 3800. Basic on-3 kit will make 450 wheel horsepower and even more torque. There's no heads cam intake that can touch that, especially for the price. Yeah, that's not what we did our comparison on. Not sure it'd be advanced. I still have the MAF 02 rear twos. Get a certain intake and you can run the big block heads with the bigger valves. I have to go back and look at the Hemi Big Bang. The Hemi did over 1,000 horsepower. Looking forward to the 3800 Big Bang. Me too. That probably will be the next one. You get a certain intake and you can run the big block heads with the bigger valves. Why does the intake matter? Does the intake or is there something different about the cylinder heads that makes them accept only a certain intake manifold? Again, not an Oldsmobile guy. It would be cool to run one though. I'll bet you. I mean, now that Westech has thrown away hundreds of sets of headers, I'll bet that they don't have a. I bet that they have an Oldsmobile intake manifold still there, but I bet that they don't have any Oldsmobile headers though. You can even run the Edelbrock heads for the big block. I'm looking around for a used Predator 79cc motor. Couldn't find one for any motorized bike build. Gonna turn my lawnmower engine sideways. All right. Speaking of O2s, the front were showing lean and the rears were showing rich. It wasn't having a rough idle. It was picked up on sensor data. Does the air fuel change going through the cat? I wouldn't think that it would. It's a difference in runner size between the big block heads and the small block heads. Is it like a Cobra Jet and a Super Cobra Jet? Or a regular 460 and a Cobra Jet and a Super Cobra Jet? The Super Cobra Jet stuff's just, just ludicrous. Those are big. Or a big block Chevy oval port and a rec port one. Or a cathedral port and a rec port LS. You know, all the good stuff. Changing rear Saturday because of front and rear values should be close to each other. That's what I thought. I thought that you shouldn't see a big change in air fuel going through there. It's very bad when the converters start to glow. Now I want to go back and look through my books and see if I have like an Oldsmobile book. Maybe did Mondello write did he do a book? Front was 100 and rears were reading 100. Do you have a leak in the cat or something? Big block is taller. If you port the intake, I think it would work. Okay. It's a massive difference. Yeah, it's a big difference in the readings. It shouldn't be anywhere near that much. Do you have a leak or a clog? Or is there... You might try to take a look at the signal going to the O2 and see if there's something going on with the voltage. Or the sensors bad or slow themselves. Where's all the there to check the efficiency of the cat. Do you have 190,000 on them? Yeah. Man, looking at the exhaust on my truck, who welded this? Somebody put a different cat section in it, welded it into the rest of the exhaust. They did a terrible job. I'm no welder, and I could have done way better than that. It looks like they welded it with a coat hanger. Are the front and rear O2 sensors interchangeable? Are they? Are they the same part number? I don't think that they would need to be, given the job they're doing, but are they both 5-wire sensors? They're not the same part. What's part number? Okay. We got 2 more minutes. We're going to get rid of it right at the 5149. Yes, on the choosing boost. But the heads cam intake guys are right there too. I'll throw together a video of the 45 stuff you can have a look at. It might take a week or two. I'm completely swamped. Yeah, don't worry about it. There's no rush. I'm going to go down to West Tech pretty soon here, but I'm running a different kind of motor that's brand new. It's not high on the to-do list right now. Sometimes the connectors have different tabs, so the knuckleheads on the assembly line can't mix them up. Yeah, and they make the wiring so it won't reach from one to the other. It's also a good way to do it. Nope, you can't plug that in there because it's not going to go there. That's telling you that it's the wrong one. Those can tell the IMS that they're not ready. To not go ready. I see. 1 more minute. Because now I got a whole bunch of stuff to do to learn everything there is to know about Oldsmobiles, or at least 1 or 2 things. I kind of wanted the 403 that was in the Trans Am that I saw that was in the wrecking yard because I wanted to run something that was different. There's definitely other guys, but it was a ratty. It was something that would have to have been completely rebuilt, I'm sure. That's why I didn't do it. If I could have had something that was hey, let's take it out and put it on there, then fine. I learned that an ECU flash does knock the IMS out because after the flash, the evap went back to not being ready. 403 is like 190 horsepower. Is that what they were in the Trans Ams? But lots of torque, like 250 or something. No, I'm sure more than that, but still, you know. Dyno Tessie Mondello 455 Oldsmobile. Near. Osmobile. It'd be funny if that 350 Oldsmobile like dethroned all these other small blocks, huh? And I would call it a small block just to make everybody mad. Are the Oldsmobile guys like the Pontiac guys, where they didn't make a big block and small block, and then they get so up in arms about it? There, near. They get pretty feisty. It's pretty funny. On that note, it is time to go. It's a cool live feed. Got to do lots of fun stuff. I'll see you guys all tomorrow. You're going to do any diesel 350 gas or conversions? Probably not.